I gotta be real, I don't know what then happens. But it seems like because Chris was confused about when the Smack C came out, Blank and Noir turned a cold soldier to her. Sylvana Rojaru was deleted from existence, and then Chris went and then posted that Sylvana was lost. We don't know what happened to Sylvana, only that she disappeared from existence. Chris then attempted to retell Sylvana's story in an effort to bring her back. She even tried to recreate Sylvana as like a new Sylvana thing, but to no avail, and apparently she'd only make things worse. Apparently, only Monica, the creepy pushy background dog as the comic puts it, can bring Sylvana back. I think that's supposed to say God and not dog, because she's referring to Monica from Doki Doki Literature Club here. And now it's time to immediately see the part of the writing that John influenced, cause then Chris starts going on about how John's massive libido and all sorts of sexual innuendos had gone to her head and made her explode and lash out at people for some reason. She further elaborates that John's married to 5 women, has a lesbian couple who wants him to help them make a baby, and is already having sex with countless other women. Friendly reminder, this is forced in there by someone who wanted to do this to make fun of Chris for making a comic about her escapism and power fantasies. Not bringing it up for any other reason than poops and giggles, not at all in reference to what just happened. Chris then goes on to recount another misunderstanding she had, this one involving someone called Blank. Blank had supposedly role-played a date between her and Chris, which I don't really know what even means. Apparently Chris, as she does best, had immediately jumped to how much he wanted to fuck her, to which she was obviously, even though she was a troll, deterred. However, she agreed to have another date with Chris, and this time, instead of bumping uglies, they instead started talking about books and politics. For some reason, this is actually given a comic page where we see Chris and Blank talk. It just sucks because you can't really tell the order of what they're saying, and what they are saying is, well, exactly what Chris just mentioned earlier they were talking about. Then the topic lands on the topic that has come up oh so many times in Chris's life. Why doesn't she get a job? And what are her responsibilities at home? Heck, even if you haven't watched all her videos, this topic has come up multiple times in the comic as well, and it's a good question to ask. Chris's justification for not getting a job is due to her online presence, yet we know for a fact she hadn't searched for a job until she was prompted to do so by the troll Casey. Plus, let's not mix words here. When you watch her videos, where over half of them is her begging for stuff and toys, it becomes evident that she just wants to get things, not work for it. Even D-Stex paid her over $1,000 to make a single volume of her comic, and even that took her over half a year to produce. As for her expenses, she actually has some good defenses, saying she's paying for the mortgage, cable, internet and more. I can actually believe that at this time, as this is after Bob's death and Barbara was seemingly taking money out of Chris's money from the government to make rent and stuff. That being said, prior to this moment, she did indeed not have any expenses other than her own luxury items, such as her multiple credit cards, of which most were some not even her parents knew about, her car, and her ludicrous video game spending habit. Chris is essentially all 7 deadly sins packed into one person. It's kind of scary actually. We jump ahead a bit to the 1st of December, where Quebec Defense's soldiers has left poo on the spot. Like when you read it, it's just so fucking stupid that you can't. We jump ahead a bit to the 1st of December, where Quebec Defense's soldiers has left poo on the border between the nations of Quebecville and Australatina. So, Quebecville is a nation now. Alright. Also, real quick, remember that trans person that Chris sicked her homophobic followers on? Ahuvia? Yeah, she's the one who came up with Australatina, so yeah. Real nice there, Chris. Super inclusive of you. Gotta love it. Chris tried to stop their fighting, but as seems to be the norm by now, doing this only further agitated the Austrians. Meanwhile, James the Sonichu was being sued by Punchy for sexual assault. Chris believed Jamster to be innocent despite an overwhelming amount of evidence. So she sent thoughts and prayers, yes, really, to the courthouse, which affected the judge, and Jamster got to walk free. And that's how Chris helped a sexual predator walk free using the power of thoughts and prayers. I hate, existing. As a result of this, there were several riots and multiple houses and buildings were set ablaze. The Quebec defenses apparently deemed this a bigger threat than the attacking neighbor nation and decided to roll out to try and stop the riots. This of course opened the borders for the Australatinans, and yes, the name has now changed, to invade Quebecville. In the ensuing war, the nation that has now been reduced to a city again was split into two, west and east. And again, I must quote, "Even most to all of the Autobots and Decepticons defending Quebecville all exploded and fizzled out, even Optimus Prime and Bumblebee at the writing hands of Michael Bay for the next Transformers movie. The sole and last survivor of Cybertron remaining the head of my Autobot, Sonichu, laryngitis and a pox upon that dang Michael Bay." So I think what Chris is trying and failing to say here is that Michael Bay killed Optimus Prime and Bumblebee. As you no doubt gathered at this point, Chris sucks at conveying anything, even in writing, which makes a lot of this just guesswork. Especially because everything is so weird and crazy and there's no real rules for what can and cannot happen. So if you misunderstand something and read that a cow suspended by a balloon is now the god of Poland, that might actually just be what was written. Literally everything goes at this point. What, Queen Elizabeth dies and become a necromancer? Sure. Lightning from Final Fantasy 13 is selling Slurpees on the beach? Why not? Les Lindas has good writing. Okay. Let's calm down. Let's not go too crazy here. So, speaking of Chris's Transformer car, you see all this here? This is about Chris talking about the new car he bought and how he was initially upset about it because of fuel and how he got his old car and blah blah blah. Then, right after, it goes, anyhow, a few days later after the Autistians killed the entire Quebec defenses. It's like that scene in The Room where they're having this normal conversation when suddenly...
I got the results of the test back. I definitely have breast cancer.
John and the CPUs have taken it upon themselves to defend what remains of the city that was before a nation. And yes, I am reminded of the whole Prism thing from Les Lindas again, and no, I will never let that... What was the saying? Alright, so they're defending the rest of the city, and I should have probably mentioned it before, but they got help from the Russians to fight the Austrians, or whatever they were called. I only bring that up now, cause now the Russians have decided to go Suka, блядь! And peaced off. They have, however, promptly been replaced by the Nazis, of course. So the Australians have killed a bunch of Quebecville's troops, but Chris, from the sound of things, now replaced them with level 100 Pokemon. They have, however, not done anything to aid in the fight because the Nazis will kill all of them. Chris and her family included, apparently. They've been so overzealous in this that the Pikachu count around Quebecville is almost extinct. I feel that there's more important things to do in a war than shoot mice. So, remember how Sylvana was deleted? Well, because of that, Mega-chan is now gay with Mewtwo, and the two of them have gotten married. I can't believe how quickly he moved on. They really had that romantic spark going. I'm thinking fondly back to the times where... So anyway, Chris explains how she had created the CPU battery charge to end the war with the Australians, but unfortunately, battery charge came out a little dumb and annoying. Chris even comments on how Battery Charge would go shopping and look for boyfriends while the war was going on. This is despite on the very same page commenting on how Mega-chan and Mewtwo got married during all of this. Be that as it may, we then move on to how Simonla had contracted a terrible syndrome during the war. Chris tried to heal and restore her, but while doing this, she apparently transferred a horrible nightmare she'd experienced into Simonla, causing her to mutate. But that's, weirdly enough, of absolutely no importance whatsoever, because what happens next is that zombie Nazis, I so-called the fucking Call of Duty thing by the way, attack them with flamethrowers. Chris is quick to react and sets up magic barriers and even stands to defend and protect Simonla with her own body. However, the dumb cow forgot she was only a projection for a moment there, and so Simonla got burned to death by Nazi zombie flamethrowers. If nothing else, I can with utmost certainty say that this comic, more than any other comic I've covered, has allowed me to say sentences I never thought I would actually say. I don't know if that's a good thing. I had actually initially written in my script here that Chris closed off this saga with this next page here because she starts the page out with, and now the final crucial details about myself right now. But then she just keeps on going and going and going. Like, bitch, how many final crucial details are there? Anyway, Chris explains how she's first of all realized why Quebecville's Chris Chandler was a sex-possessed lunatic and claims it was due to her own sins of lust. Wasn't it because that Chris was possessed by literal Satan? You know, I kind of remember that because, you know, it was literal fucking Satan! Chris explains that the other Chris couldn't control her lust, while Chris herself was much better at restraining her impulses. Despite, you know, early admitting to coming right out of the gate and saying how she wanted to fuck Blank right away. It's kind of crazy how you, in the same volume, can contradict yourself so many times. Chris, however, goes on to talk about how she's grown and changed over the course of these past 2 months. So all of this took place in the duration of 2 months, huh? Mega-chan and Mewtwo met up and got married in the span of 2 months? Blake ended up becoming an extremist who worships Osama bin Laden in 2 months? Okay. Anyway, Chris also comes to terms with the fact that despite her thinking she was being talked to by God and Jesus Christ, it turns out this was all Akan using his psychic powers to infiltrate Chris's head and mess with her. I mean, to be absolutely fair, if I had psychic powers like this, I don't think I would do anything but spend all my days just infiltrating people's brains and like really just dig in there and implant really annoyingly catchy 90s pop songs. What then follows is actually pretty important and significant for Chris. She explains how her faith and belief in God and Jesus Christ isn't enough for her and declares being of sound mind and body as of December 17, 2017, that she no longer believes in Jesus or God. For anyone who knows just a little bit of Chris, knows that this is kind of big. Chris has always been really devout, coming from an old-fashioned Southern family as she is. She's on first-name basis with her pastor. Her and her family would often go to church. And again, Chris was initially named Christopher, but changed it to Christian because she thought God spoke to her through a bear in a shopping mall. So to hear her denounce Christianity is pretty massive. It does, however, kind of lower the impact when she then starts going on about how she's putting all of her faith into CPU and console goddesses. So much for sound mind and body, huh? Chris is then reminded that she's forgotten to tell us that during the past months, John and his group and Chris have been adding funds to Quebecville through the simulated heist pulled off in Payday 2. Fuck me, Team Die Riser have actually been helping funneling money into Quebecville, haven't we?
I can just see Sebastian headbanging through the wall. This game is amazing.
Fucking good.
Yeah, okay, maybe not. By the way, I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/crownlessking. Go follow me, it's pretty fun. Mega-chan has then turned all the Payday 2 money into real money, which effectively lowers the overall value of the currency if I'm not mistaken, but whatever. While this is all going on, apparently all the Chris clones in Equestria has evolved into a weird blubbery form, and so John, Megan and Neptune decided to do the only logical thing and burn them all to death with napalm. Yay! War crimes! Speaking of fucked up things that shouldn't exist, we now hear about how Chris has made an effort to use Dittos to replace all of the dead Sonichus and Rosechus. But she then learned that they are all stuck in this weird time loop thingy, where every time a Rosechu or a Sonichu dies, their souls return to the same place they were initially born, and they are then reborn from an egg, complete with all their personality traits and memories intact, unable to leave this mortal coil even if they so desire. And because Chris believes her late dad Robert was a Sonichu, yep, this now means that Robert Chu is back as a baby Sony. Initially, I was wondering what all those dots on him were until I realized that those are probably supposed to be all of the holes in Robert's body from the severe insect bites he suffered due to Barbara's hoarding. Over time, I've kind of just learned that every time I can't really tell what's going on, I just need to think to myself, what would actually be the worst, most insulting thing you could put on paper? And then, most of the time, all of the things just kind of fall into place. So the next part is just this weird aside where Chris just really wants to talk about how much he hates the Nazis and wants to get them, but not because, you know, of all that you read in the history books and all that. No, but because they keep addressing her as Herr and not Frau. A friendly reminder, Chris hasn't actually been in contact with any Nazis, so this is basically just one of those arguments that you have in your head spun out of control. Chris explains how she deals with all of these Nazis by dousing them with her own blood and then dissolves the Nazis like it was the blood from a goddamn xenomorph. Following this, Chris then tries to solve the Nazi issue in Equestria by asking this dragon thing called Discord for help. Discord doesn't want to do anything though, so Chris then turns him into stone until he agrees to help. And then Discord kills every Nazi by giving them a fatal heart attack. This just leaves the Nazis who got Chris's blood on them and didn't dissolve, but this effectively turned them into subhumans, which in this case are Sonichus, and because of this, they all decide to fuck back to Germany and disband the Third Reich, cause I guess things couldn't get any worse than this. In terms of bad things, it goes dying, stubbing your toe, get turned into a Sonichu, invest in NFTs. Seeing as the word of the day is random, we now move on to random facts about Sonichus and Rosechus. Here we found out a bunch of nothing facts about Rosechus and Sonichus, such as them aging every 2 years, even though we literally age every second, cause aging is literally just a way to describe the body's reaction to the passage of time. We also, of course, have to make this about Chris, who explains that she has ceased aging in both appearance and internally since she turned 21 years old. No comment. Anyway, thank Christ on high that it now seems like we're actually getting a comic finally. Unfortunately, it's all about how Chris's pony persona, or whatever they're called, Nightstar, has been tortured and lost all of her magic, and thus she can't go back to Nazi Germany and kill all of the Nazis. But luckily, Chris shows up and buffs her by the use of her love. And now Nightstar Chris's alter ego can go to Germany and kill Nazis. We move on to the 19th of January at the prison of the Nazis. How are there still any Nazis left? The Nazis have been melted, turned into Sonichus, died of heart attacks, and been disbanded. Well, now they've also been killed in a fiery explosion as their headquarters are exploded, and John, living out Joshua's own self-grandizing story, chops off Death's head from Wolfenstein's head. Meanwhile, in California, our world, someone is sat reading when there's a knock on the door, and it turns out that it is no one but the lumberjack himself, Mr. Robert Franklin Chandler Jr. himself. The person then guides Robert to the portal to Quebecville, where they're greeted by a fellow reborn Sonichu. But this looks like a normal dude. Well, as normal as they can look in this comic, I suppose. The somewhat ordinary dude asks Robert to introduce himself, to which Robert gives a long introduction as to who he is, After this introduction, the dude introduces himself as Fyodor Bundy, aka Bundychu. So, I'll be real, when I first saw this I went,
there he is!
Because I'd already seen that the mass serial killer Ted Bundy was gonna show up in the comic. I remember I saw this because people were giving Chris shit for introducing him as a character, to which Chris said she'd personally talked to Bundy and could indeed confirm he wasn't as bad a person anymore. Which I'm sure Ted's 30 victims are super happy to hear. And sure enough, the comic tries to explain away that Ted Bundy was mind controlled by Akon, and so now he's returning to fight for the families. Funny little tidbit that has nothing to do with anything really, but did you know that family, friends, and even young Ted himself were told that Ted's grandparents were actually his parents and that his mother was his older sister? Kinda fucked up when you think about it. Robert and Ted Bundy then goes to Quebecville, and I realized that the amount of sentences I thought I'd never say keeps increasing rapidly with this read-through. Here Sonichu runs to Robert's side, and Robert introduces himself as his grandpa, Mr. C. Now, as I'm sure a lot of you know, I have an education in psychology, but I'm in no way, shape or form a professional psychologist or anything like that. Still, I will say that after Robert's death, and Chris has taken to call him Mr. C rather than Robert, it almost feels like a form of dissociation. It's a common theme in an Oedipus complex that you want to villainize the parent of your own gender, as they function almost like a love rival between you and your other parent. And we saw this in full display during the call where Chris admitted to having sex with her mother, that she made an active effort in mentioning how her dad couldn't sexually satisfy her mother. So my very uneducated interpretation is that Chris is calling Robert Mr. C because that is her way of separating her love from her dad with her parent Robert. Robert was her dad, her love for her parent is Mr. C, if that makes any sense. So in Chris's mind, if Robert is dead but Mr. C comes back, her mom is free game. If that sounds super fucked up, guess what? After Robert has been introduced to the Sonichu and Rojaru, who all break out crying, we move on to the next day where Adolf Hitler gives a speech in the occupied West Quebecville. Again, aren't all Nazis dead? The Nazis have now been blown up, melted, suffered fatal heart attacks and turned into Sonichus. Like, fuck me! Is this like the one Resident Evil movie where they go, all civilization is dead? Then the next movie they go, oh, but we found some more civilization. Neat. Remember that? Boy, I sure do. Anyway, for some reason, we must again be told about how all the different Nazis got turned into Sonichus and Rojaru. This time including Hitler, cause, I don't know if you noticed, but Hitler was a Nazi. Mindfuck, I know. And when the comic, as you might have guessed, just moves on, and we are told that on the 22nd and 26th of January, Rosie and Roberta both give birth. Now, I made no secret that I do not fully believe Chris's heart is in it when concerning Roberta's transitioning, or even fully understands it. And sure enough, here Roberta is giving birth, which, let me remind you, is possible due to binaural beats. But she's still being referred to as the male moniker Sonichu. In case you don't know or have blissfully forgotten, I envy you, but female Sonichus are all called Rojaru, and all male Sonichus are called Sonichus. So Chris is, once again, refusing to fully acknowledge her own character's female transition. Anyway, Rosie gave birth to 3 male Rosies, and Roberta's eggs hatched into 3 female Sonies. They were all kept safe from harm and well educated and battle trained. Alright kids, listen up. This right here is an M9 Beretta. It's a semi-automatic short recoil hand pistol. It carries 9x19mm parabellum bullets. Now, can any of you motherfuckers spell M9? So Chris is now off to change time, because she can do that now. Quebecville and Equestria were restored and the Nazis were all banished to another timeline. So now they've been blown up, melted, given fatal heart attacks, turned into Sonichus, been disbanded and then turned into Sonichus again, and are now banished to a different timeline, which, I mean, if there's any Nazis left, you not solved the problem, you just made it someone else's problem. Like, you kind of just moved it over there. Anyway, Mega-chan, after all of this, suffered a horrible mental breakdown, causing a tear to form in the noosphere, the fuck, above Quebecville. Was this when Chris was taking pictures of dead cats online and posting them on her social media, claiming it was her own, and then when she caught flack for it, she claimed it was Medi-chan doing it? Anyway, due to the tear, psionic storms ravaged the area on and off, and Chris was powerless to stop it with her own psychic powers. She even tried to use her writing powers to close the hole, but to no avail, which would be an interesting concept to explore, but I guess we can't have anything nice now, can we? Instead, we get Chris explaining how the tear was not closed but opened even worse. It would, however, get closed and sealed by a corporate team that is thus far nameless. I'm noticing that there's a lot of "and then this thing happens," followed immediately by "it's fixed now, don't worry about it." Maggie-chan, I think, then explains that homosexuality scanning for years was simply the worst to him. He confesses that he's gay, that him and Mewtwo are a thing, and that he's married Sylvana Rosechew. So, I don't know, there's something here that doesn't add up. Anyway, he further explains how after all this business with the tear is over, he's gonna marry Chris and her destined wife too. Friendly reminder that all Rosechews and Sonichus all call Chris father. Or mom now, I suppose, which, you know, if you'll excuse me, I'll just go vomit real quick. Even though I have been quoting the comic directly, it would seem that the tear is in fact not closed after all. So Chris sees it's her responsibility to close the tear by marching in personally. Chris then transforms using her electric hedgehog power, and if you thought Medan from Warcraft was a Mary Sue with way too many powers, I'm now gonna read in full all the things that Chris draws power from. Chaos Bond, Emerald Summons, Rainbow Bond, Prophecy Bond, Love Bond, Tribal Bonds, Time Bonds, Dimension Bond, Celestial Bond, Iblis Bond, Chryslay Bond, CPU Bond, and Blessings, Mega Evolution, and Angelic Evolution. She then starts quoting the song Davajna Ring by Pedusian Band, and of course finish it off with Jiggy Briggy Davai Davai, because, you know, memes. With all these powers combined, Chris is now able to turn into her super angelic evolved form and just kinda closes the tear. You know how bad animes will have this thing where someone powers up, but you only really know that they powered up because everyone keeps going, "Oh my god, they're so strong now!" Yeah, that's this comic. Now, this next part here, you'll excuse me for skipping over some stuff, but as mentioned earlier, these pages are all photos or scans off of preview pictures of the comic as it was never finished, and some of these pictures are frankly fucking awful and even cut off at random places sometimes. But yeah, what follows is just a mishmash of serious events all happening all at once, but given about as much agency as... No, actually, it's given absolutely no agency, never mind that. These events include Chris's wife to be going into a coma, Magi-chan getting a metallic limiter in his brain to prevent him from using his powers as much again, and how Robotnik had traveled into the past to rewrite the ancient prophecy wall. Oh, and the wall is now destroyed in the present and we never find out why. Chris then proceeds to give Magi-chan a good verbal beatdown, but sure enough, it quickly turns out to be about Chris herself, cause remember, fuck everyone else. This is about Chris and how great she is. She also cussed Magi-chan out for putting SPB, which is Chris's mysterious wife, to be in the coma. But the literal only reference to SPB I could find pertaining to Chris is a weird Transformers rip-off samurai pizza butts. And I think it's worrying that that could actually be it. Chris is so far gone at this point that she could actually marry herself to a car, and I would be sat here going, yeah, you know what? Makes sense. So even though this one-sided conversation goes on for 1 to 5 pages, literally all I could get is that Chris is sorry she didn't give Mega-chan enough attention. It has basically made Mega-chan super jealous, and so he caused a tear and destroyed the ancient stone slabs. 5 pages. Also say this. There's probably more, as you can tell there's colored pages that are just straight up skipped. Instead we get this page that goes, yep, between how Nightstar sweetie cunt Nyukit looked so damn attractive, a mental PTSD like survival nightmare I've had to endure for Sylvana Rosedew a few months ago, and yada yada yada. I, Miss Christine Weston Chandler, am a bisexual trans woman, and I really could not be happier to have both my destined Crystal Sonichu and Mega-chan Sonichu both as my lovers and partners. This was all one sentence, by the way. Oh, also, Sonichu is in Quebecville shopping center with a gun. Because I guess he felt neglected as well. And you know what this means? More full pages of Chris explaining herself saying the exact same shit again. Well, there's a few things that aren't the same, such as this thing here. And unlike the Chris here, I am not a total sex addict as I was. And lately, I've been embracing more and more of my Sonichu half. I slept in a puddle of my own pee on my bed. And I urge you to open your mind and heart for me and see through my recent events. And then the two of them finish it off with a hug. Aww. And then a full French kiss on the lips.
What the fuck?
Then Chris explains, I promise I will have sex with you later, Sonichu. But right now, you and I have some mistakes to undo and amend for. Let's go, my son. And in case you thought it was just another one of Chris's poor wordings or something, I shit you not. Sonichu then exclaims that he refuses to let Chris go because now he's simply way too horny to let Chris go without getting some nookie. Sonichu then tries to rape Chris, but Chris kicks Sonichu's ass and then finishes off the fight with, either she's sticking her whole fucking hand up his ass and wearing him like a fucking hand puppet, or she's grabbing and lifting him by his balls. And I honestly don't know which is worse. Chris then restrains Sonichu and says she'll be back to scold him later because she now has to explain a bunch of more shit to us, the readers. No, fuck that! How about we address whatever the fuck is going on between you and Sonichu? Cause that's a whole bag of worms I'd love to go over and explore. In fact, I think we are legally obligated to open that can of worms. But nope, instead Chris wants to explain some more time shenanigans. And that's actually where this volume ends. Well, kind of. Now, I get these comic pages from the Quickie, and there were these last 4 pages attached to the end. And I feel they're pretty important to bring up. Because from the sound of things, it seems like they're made after this volume, with Chris reflecting about what's been going on. She mentions how Joshua Wise and the Idea Guys has royally messed with her, but almost infuriatingly so, still goes on about being in a relationship with Hubby and thinking that Quebecville is real, as well as the CPU goddesses and all this other stuff. In other words, Chris knows that Joshua Wise and the rest of the Idea Guys were messing with her by basically brainwashing her, yet is still fully believing what they've said and done are 100% real. Honestly, this just makes me feel that Chris maybe doesn't know what exactly the Idea Guys did wrong, and only know they've done her wrong by how Null and the other people from the Kiwi farms acted when they found out about all of this. This gave Chris an excuse to be a victim and be pitied, so she took it, yet still fully believed in all of the shit they told her, even after everyone else telling her it's made up. Even after all this crazy shit that we've just been through, even being told by literally everyone else that all of this is fake and made up to fuck with Chris's head, she still insists on it being true, cause it makes her feel special and powerful. And no matter what any of us say, we will never make her believe otherwise. And so I want to end this video with a question or two. Who is the most fucked up? Chris or the idea guys? And who is the most sad person? Is it Chris or Joshua Wise? As I said before, with Sonichu and Chris, there's honestly no winners. But there are in fact no shortage of losers.
You and I, we've been going the distance, aiming for the sky, with a secret ambition. It's not our thing to walk the road that's paved. We're not the ones who roam the trail that's blazed. And there's a flame in your eye that's igniting mine. I know I've seen it before. In the gaze of a cloudy land, I'm not afraid anymore. Let's break the rules and really put our backs into it. Max out, pursue it. What's a better time than now to cross the line?
Hello. Thank you for watching the video. This video will, in case you're not like watching this as a Patreon, this video will be one of two. That's simply just me trying to make a new thing and see how that works out. And I really want to hear you guys' take on it. Basically, the whole idea is that I want to spread out my content a little more, so that I have more of a buffer to work with when I'm working on episodes, so that it doesn't seem as long between episodes. So the first video is gonna come out, and then the next video is gonna come out like maybe 2 weeks later. I haven't really figured it out yet. And then if you are a Patreon, you're just gonna get the entire video in one whole video. So like I'm not like holding anything back for anyone. It's just that you get it at a later date, so that there is an incentive to become a Patreon. But also, again, as I said, to spread out the content. If this is something that you guys are fine with, or you like, or you dislike, I would really like to know. Now that I have a podcast, there's not really a whole lot of things I need to explain, because you can just go and check out the podcast that I have with Cloudy Days, where we just talk about everything and nothing, and you can keep in track of like how Webcomic Relief is going and hear us talk about a bunch of dumb stuff. You can find that on Twitch. There'll be a link in the description. But for now, let's talk about the amazing people who helped sponsoring this video. Amocin. If you watched this show for long enough, you will have heard the name Amocin, who brought you the great adult webcomic Druids, taking place in the Warcraft universe. They've now finished that comic, discarded the Warcraft setting, thank God, and set sails towards a new comic called Skylords. There's a link in the description in case you want to check it out. Nicholas Knudson. Nicholas hasn't gotten back to me about what it is that he wants me to push, so for now, just know that he's a really cool dude. Rojaru. Rojaru doesn't have anything he wants me to push, so just know that he's a cool guy. The Bonsai. Bonsai is working on a comic and is currently building it up through cryptic short stories on his Ko-fi and Twitter. So if you want to puzzle together what exactly this genius is working on, go and check it out and see if you can figure it out. Sebastian Vandborg. Sebastian wants me to push the Twitter account Curious Zelda, which has a rich plethora of cute and funny cat images. He doesn't own the account or anything, but he just likes cats and wants to share that love with other people. Caesar. Caesar wants me to push, well, the Webcast Relief, which is the podcast hosted by yours truly and Cloudy Days that you might have seen pop up on this channel. The podcast is on every streaming platform you normally listen to podcasts on, and if you're a creator in any way or want to know what goes on behind the scenes of the Webcomic Relief, it might be worth checking out. Hitori the Artist. Hitori wants me to push a friend of his Patreon that just started, in which they want to fund their webcomic that has, for unfortunate reasons, been halted in the middle of it all. You can read more about it on their Patreon, and it really seems like they really want to work on this comic. So if you want to help, please go and take a look. Hugo Junstrand. It's freaking time. My boy Hugo has finally announced his original series Torch Drop. It's a fantasy story where animals steal body parts from other species. It's still being produced, but you can check out the trailer in the description and see the amazing stuff Hugo has in store for us. Luke McKay. Luke McKay, that we all know and love from his Rooster Teeth comics and Balls to That, is currently working on comics for D&D Beyond and has now taken over doing comics for the Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms game at codenameentertainment.com. So please check it out. Marshall Starr. Marshall Starr is a comic that's a mix between sci-fi and western, presented with some banging art and some hardcore action. If this sounds like it's something up your alley, then this comic is for you. Chapter 4 is going up and it updates every Tuesday and Thursday. Why Not Warrior? Why Not Warrior wants me to push the webcomic known as Hope. The comic is about superheroes that gets into trouble and who has to save the universe from an evil empire known only as Spade. When the young girl Raylan gets targeted by this evil empire, she joins forces with her friends to take them down and save the galaxy. And of course, can't forget about Afly, Nina Ha, Devin McGibbon, KH Vafiel, Draker of Adrian, Alex J, and Shiv. And you know we also gotta send some love to the lovely people that you see on screen right now. So thank you so much. If you want to support the show, change my life and make it so I can live off of YouTube and entertaining people, please go to my Patreon. Here you can donate anything you want every month and you'll get a ton of awesome rewards for it. Just go to www.patreon.com/Riser. You can also go to TeePublic and get your hands on some of the new Webcomic Relief merch. The link is in the description. You can also use the link in the description and get some discounts on your next Skillshare subscription. If you want to watch me on Twitch, you can do so at twitch.tv/crownlessking with 2 eyes. Here you'll also be able to catch me and Cloudy doing a new podcast. If you don't want to support the show financially, at least think about liking the video, subscribing to the channel, or sharing your favorite Webcomic Relief episode with your friends, or maybe join the Discord. We are a bunch of lovely people. I'll see you guys at the next Webcomic Relief. Take care.